We're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Evan Gordon. I'm the wholesale manager over here at Fossil Creek Nursery. Today, we're going to be talking about pruning. I'll be sort of doing a demonstration from. We'll do a shrub here as well as a peach tree behind me. We'll kind of go over, different pruning techniques. First and foremost, what it is you want to accomplish with pruning. We'll go over different styles. We'll kind of go over all the basics. It won't go in depth necessarily, but yeah, we'll be going over just like I said, different types of pruning techniques, what it is you're looking for, and then we'll just go over shrubs, and then we'll answer questions after that. So, yeah, we'll jump right in. Like I said before, number one thing is what the number one question is what it is you are trying to accomplish with pruning. So there's different types of pruning. There's structural pruning, there's renewal pruning, there's ornamental or stylistic pruning, and what you're looking for. So that is the most important thing is what you're looking for as an end result. So we'll go over with the Alberta peach first, and then we'll kind of move over to the shrubs. So bear with me. I'm going to be moving some things around just so we can make sure everything's in frame and you can actually see the precise cuts, and just actually seeing what we're going after. So yeah. So a couple ground rules. I've worked in municipalities for years before being wholesale manager over here. So I guess my expertise would be structural pruning, mature trees in parkland style, as well as street tree plantings, and assessing what is necessarily negative with that tree or shrub. I also know about stylistic and ornamental with shrub pruning, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, what it is you're trying to achieve. So, structural pruning, that's going to be more so your safety issues, or if there's anything that you're looking for that could pose a threat to your well-being of your homeowner, the municipality, parkland style, that sort of thing. So structural pruning is anything you see an issue with limbs, branches, dead branches, that sort of thing. Say this limb right here was bent or broken, then we would just cut it off at the node right here. So we would do that. Renewal pruning on shrubs, ornamental stylistic. That's more so. I guess an example would be a hedgerow or a privacy screen. So your yews, your arborvitae, shrubs like that, trees like that. So yeah, a big rule of thumb is the 1/3 rule. So for shrubs and small trees, no more than 1/3 can be removed. You don't want to stress it out that much. So when you do that, it really it becomes an issue of you're cutting too much, especially in a given season. You want to take as much as 1/3, no more, during that season, and then go from there. You follow, season after that, following season after that. So that's a big rule of thumb in arboriculture, that sort of thing. That is well known. But yeah, so 5 types of tree pruning. So like I said, we'll start with the tree first, and then move on to shrubs. So bear with me. We'll move this Alberta peach. Started blooming, so we had to take it inside and kind of protect it and make sure it's okay. So I'm going to try to do my best to show what it is I'm going after. So I'm kind of using this little chalkboard to actually see specifically what it is I'm doing. So with the chalkboard, now you can see 1, 2, 3 branches. So the 5 types of tree pruning: crown thinning, dead pruning, crown lifting, crown reduction, and pollarding. So with that, the 5 types of tree pruning, there's 3 different cuts within that. There's thinning cuts, reduction cuts, and heading cuts. Heading cuts are not ideal, but necessary, sometimes necessary. A good example would be you planted an ornamental tree underneath power lines because you knew this crabapple is going to get to maximum 15 to 20 feet. Well, sometimes things don't go as planned. So your crabapple is going, uh-oh, it's 20 to 25. It's starting to get close to these telephone poles. So that's when you would do the heading cut, and you would just basically lop the top off, still try to create that nice tulip-shaped form best you can with a crabapple, for example. And that way, you know you can keep this tree, and you can keep it for however long you like, being under a power line. So we do thinning cuts. Thinning cuts is smaller, smaller branches that are they don't pose a real function. So something like this would be growing this branch. I know it's kind of difficult to see, but this little guy is kind of suckering, is coming out underneath a more vital branch up right above it. I would just go ahead and snip that. So, and then let's see, reduction cuts. So those three could all be honestly assessed with this peach. But like I said before, heading cut, not preferable. Let's see. Too low. So 5 types pruning. Crown thinning, obviously a crown. Dead pruning, pretty self-explanatory. Cut out any dead that you see. I'll kind of go over that with the shrub, because this one shrub I am utilizing is just unfortunately going to be scrapped. So we can kind of actually make some cuts on that in real time and actually actually show you exactly what we'll be doing. And then the crown reduction, we don't want what they call a lion's tail or a lion's mane. It's when the crown is too heavy. A lot of times, a Joe Schmo homeowner, he can't get to the top of the crown, so he will thin out. He'll thin out a bunch of the bottom, which is great, but you need to continue that up to the crown. So a lot of times, crown reduction is very necessary if, one, not properly contracted out by a licensed professional, and two, like I said, just the homeowner not being able to reach it and not wanting to climb up in the tree, which is understandable. So that's when we would, clean it up. So right here, actually, so this is a good example. Right here, you can kind of see where the board is. So right there, there's a cluster right there. That cluster, I would take out a couple branches right here, because one, it's a new tree, so it's okay right now, but that would pose a threat down the line if we were to keep that, because we want to make sure the leader right above it is the dominant leader. It's not going to be out competed by this second off branch that's going to be coming up and then eventually start competing with the leader. We obviously want a stout, sturdy, dominant leader. We don't want codominant trunks. We don't want anything like that. And it sounds like it's a little early for thinking about that, but really it's not. You want to always make sure you have a dominant leader. So what else? So since obviously it's a smaller tree and we have a smaller space to work with, I'm going to pretend that this is a mature tree, and then we'll go into certain type of cuts and whatnot, and pruning techniques for a mature tree. So, which a lot of times can be seen as somewhat easier to visually see what it is that needs to be pruned and what it is that can be left. So with a mature tree, so say for example right here, this could be a water sprout. This would be taken out. A lot of times crab apples get them really bad. A couple other trees do, specifically ornamentals, but that's what we'd want to take out. Water sprouts is a big one. It's an easy one to notice because the branching, the layer, that's a different coloration than another branch, than a hardier branch. So it's usually, so for example, this Alberta, it's going to be a new fleshy green as opposed to a dark brown. So that's kind of the easy route to take first and foremost, and then you can move on to the trunk with dog hairs and whatnot, and the water sprouts as well. You can take those out and then move on from there. It's kind of like the simplistic, okay, getting your brain associated with this tree and the branching techniques and seeing truly what it is that you need to be doing with that end result. So with a mature tree, it goes up to 20% removal. Young trees, say we have this peach planted for 5 to 8 years, give or take, that would be a little bit less of what you'd want to remove. It's typically 10 to 15% of foliage per season to remove. So, like I said earlier, don't go crazy on removing in one season. It's easy to go, oh man, I could take this out, I could take this out, I could really make this look good so I don't have to worry about it for the next few seasons at the very least in the foreseeable future. But you kind of have to, keep reserve, stay reserved in that regard where you go, okay, this is one season, then it's this percentage. It may seem like 10 to 50% may seem like a small percentage, but in the end, the grand scheme of things, it's really not. And that's just what it's suggested by tree care professionals. So, I can show you the 3-cut method for large limbs. Again, we're working with a smaller guy here, but just use your imagination, and I'll show you how to do the 3-limb technique. So, I'll grab pruners. Typically, it's done with a saw or even a hand saw if you really want to get a workout in. So we'll do 3 pruning technique. So let's see. Let's try to find a good one for the camera. I'll turn this a little. Right there. I'll do this slower one down here. It might be a little easier to see. Actually, let's go with this one. So, 3-cut method for large limbs. So the final cut we're going to say is right here. You can kind of see, let me show you the blackboard. You can kind of see the final cut. Final cut's going to be right here. That's where, say we want to take this off, say this limb is damaged or any, various reasons. We're going to cut here, that'll be the final cut, so 3rd cut. So first cut we're going to do, it's going to be underneath. So like I said again, it's going to be usually done with a saw or a hand saw if you really want to go that route, but typically it's done with a saw. So first cut underneath the branch. Second cut is going to be right above it, but just enough away from the tree or the trunk than that first cut underneath. So first cut, second cut on top, a little further away. And that way, in case it does break, it can split a little bit, but it won't split and splinter down all the way down to the final cut, and then furthering damaging that cut that you initially want to do. So that's why it's 1 cut, 2 cut, and then typically that second cut, that'll fell. And then that final cut, we'll usually just have that little section right there, that section right there, and then whoosh, final cut right there. Easy peasy. So the most important one is making sure that second cut right there is gonna be the final cut that's gonna fellow it, the branch, and then the final, technically. So that's the 3-cut method. It's kind of difficult to see. I hope you guys could at least kind of picture it on a larger limb and what would be used on that cut. So yeah, we went over percentages, what to remove, young trees. So say this within a couple seasons, each given season, you could do up to 25%, but then it goes back. So then it dials it back to about 10, 15% of foliage per season. And then once it gets back up to maturity, then you can go about, give or take, 20%. But honestly, it's all pretty similar. It's off by 5, 10%. So really just make sure the most important thing is you're not cutting too much. Like I said earlier, it's easy to get carried away with knowing what you need to cut, saying this branch is interfering with this other one right above it, and it's a smaller one. Easy peasy, you can cut that. But if you're already cut that amount, then it's not necessary, and you're just going to be stressing the tree then when you shouldn't be. So let's see what else. When to prune, that is a big one. Pruning, it would be late winter / spring, so right about now, and that would be usually before the spring growth flush. So unfortunately, these guys started budding early, so we're going to be holding off on them. But usually it's before the spring flush, usually before there's buds about to bloom, and that's a really well-timed pruning. And then as well as midsummer, so I guess post growth flush, midsummer, early fall, or even late summer, as long as the tree isn't properly stressed, it looks healthy, it has vigor, it looks good. Is basically that's acceptable to look at it and say, yeah, there is some water sprouts, there is some branching, there's some dead material, there's a little bit of everything. It does need to be pruned. Okay, then you can go and prune it. It's not ideal. I'd say it's not necessarily ideal outside of those 2 times if you can help it. I understand there's certain type of there's certain reasons why behind why people need this pruned at a certain given time that isn't necessarily ideal for when you should be pruning in the first place. Say there's a large limb that cracked on a mature tree, that would pose a safety threat. So you're going to need to remove it, even if it is in a really bad time. It's late summer, it's stressed, there's a drought, that sort of thing. It ultimately needs to happen when the human need is there. So let's see. We may move on to shrubs. Let me make sure. On that. So yeah, biggest takeaways for tree. 1/3 rule. I guess that also goes for shrubs, but that is a very big rule. The 5 types of pruning for tree is, again, crown thinning, dead pruning, crown lifting, crown reduction, and pullarding. And then those cuts within those types of pruning would be thinning cut, reduction cut, and header cut. So we'll move into shrubs. So bear with me while I move some things around. Just get it out of the way. Let's see here. That's a little better. Okay. So move on to shrubs. Now I know it might be a little difficult. I'm going to move some things around. If anyone can't see anything for some reason, say so in the comments, please, and I'll try to move them accordingly. So shrub pruning, kind of changing gears. Let's see. So we'll do direct shape. So direct shape, there's 2 different types. There's going to be an upright, so it'll be a tighter center. It'll be more columnar and dense in the middle. And then we'll do spreading, which is kind of an open center. So this is somewhat more of an open spreading. You can see kind of right here. Try to move it for each camera. See right here, it's a little open right here. So honestly, it's not terrible, but we would definitely use some work down the line. There is some smaller branching that it's going to be competing with larger branches that we want to keep. So there definitely could be some work in this. Not terrible, not the worst. So, and the beauty with shrubs is it's a little easier. It's easier to get to. You don't have to climb up in a tree. You don't necessarily even have to hire someone like a tree care professional. So shrubs are sometimes a little more enjoyable. So we'll do branch by branch shaping. So long branches are cut back into the shrub, so it makes it a more natural shape. So for this guy, I would see, these taller ones up here. You can see this guy right here. So you can see this taller guy up here. He's kind of off by himself. That's not necessarily a natural shape. And then we're going to cut back some of it over here because you can kind of see it's coming out a little too much. It's kind of poking out. So kind of like Poindexter. So you want to just cut that down. So we want a more mounded shape, or a natural shape. So not looking terrible from this angle, from what the camera sees. And then when I turn it, there it kind of flattens out. So kind of a side note, if you were to do any plantings or anything, and you come across a shrub that you purchase that is more flattened out like this, so this would be the focal point. So say it's right in front of your porch or house or something like that, you're going to want it to spread out like this, as opposed to planting it like that, where it just looks kind of awkward and it's more tightened up in the middle. So you definitely would want that. Just kind of a side note for if you were to plant shrubs that aren't necessarily perfectly rounded. None are. So what else we got? So shearing to shape. That is a quick and easy way. Frequent shearing does not encourage new growth, however, so that is sort of the drawback that we're kind of looking at. One common mistake with pruning shrubs is probably to shape shrubs with a wide top and narrow base. And this is what you drop in your head when you think of a nice hedgerow of shrubs. It's the wide, and it's actually exactly what you're looking at right here. So it's the wide, real wide top, whereas it's a real small, narrow base. If you are to do a shrub hedgerow or anything like that, you actually want it to be reversed. You want it to be thick growing down here. You want the foliage to basically be pyramidal. So you want the foliage still down here. Now I understand necessarily burning bush, a couple other shrubs, for example, it looks odd because it's kind of, we've just become accustomed to it. But it actually gets better. You get sunlight down here for the trees, or sorry, the leaves. I apologize, foliage, and it retains water better as opposed to these corners. Since it's coming out like this, these will get the most sunlight, and therefore it's just going to continue creating this funnel that you don't necessarily want. Stylistically, I understand if you want a single stem, sort of like this, you want a single stem like that, and this is just the shape that it eventually takes. You can prune back the sides, but it doesn't necessarily still create that end result that you ultimately want. So, and there is some dead guys. There's some little ones I'll show you. So it's little ones that aren't necessarily doing anything. They probably won't have any foliage on them. You can cut that back, and as odd as it sounds, creates better airflow, more oxygen for the plant, better plant. So same thing with trees. There's going to be competing branches. So I know this one's difficult to see. So say there's two branches on top of each other. This one is what you want, the dominant. This one is a little smaller, and you see it eventually is going to start creating problems into that other branch. You cut the bottom one. So try to find one. Let's try to find one. So right here could be an issue. Right here. I know it's somewhat difficult to see, and it kind of looks like it's all the same. So right here, this guy is competing with these two. So you can kind of see right here, right there, it kind of gets a little dense. Clean that up a little bit and make sure those branches are the ones that you want to see foliate, that you want to see nice foliage on those. So what else is there? So shearing the shape, the frequent shearing does not encourage new growth, like I said. The one mistake with shaping it is a big thing. What else? Yeah, so that's probably all I got. But yeah, I know it's pretty basic. But yeah, just keeping in mind pruning to the specifications or what you're looking for in that tree or shrub is the number one question you want to ask yourself. So for this one, say I want it to be a nice specimen by itself. Then you can shape it to however you'd like. If it's for a hedgerow, like I said, keep it pyramidal. So you want to go out, up to the top. So there's different kind of varieties and styles that people like to do. But again, it's just, like I said, what you are looking for in that tree or shrub. So, but yeah, thanks everyone. I think that's all for now. If anyone has any questions, I'll be here for another minute or two. So yeah, please in the comment section, if you got anything for me, just let me know. So yeah. Let's see. And honestly, looks like I got one comment. So holding the pruners, that is important. It's obviously important. It's not the end all. It's not overly critical. So I hold them. So technically, you want your fingers. I do a bad job of this. I'll be honest. I'll hold it up here. Don't necessarily want that, but I do that because when there's a bigger branch to cut, you get more power out of it with this finger being up here. But technically, you want it down here. And then a lot of pruners nowadays, I mean, they'll have the locking mechanism right here. Just helps with when you're kind of messing with things. Boom, open back up, boom. So yeah, Um, yeah, we hand saws, the Silky brands, Corona. There's a bunch of different pruning techniques and tools to use that are awesome, that are vital. I think years and years ago,